Welcome to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey, it's William Harris here. I am the founder and CEO of Element and the host of this podcast where I feature experts in the D2C industry sharing strategies on how to scale your business profitably. I'm really excited about the guest that I have today. I have Alexa Vogue here. Alexa Vogue has a unique dual role, working both brand side as the SVP at Brilliant, a leading PR and influencer marketing firm, and influencer side as the SVP at Famfluence, an influencer management agency representing the highest performing creators in the family space across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Alexa also has over a decade of experience in the industry and has worked with a diverse range of partners, from small startups taking their first dive into influencer marketing to global brands such as Amazon, Walmart, and Disney. Her expertise on both the brand and influencer sides of the industry have enabled her to develop and implement effective strategies that outperform benchmarks. Alexa, so excited to have you here.
So happy to be here, William, and have these conversations. And yeah, hopefully everyone gets to learn a couple things today.
Let's break down some of the myths of influencer marketing, right?
Yes.
Before we do that, though, I do want to quickly announce our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million, and we were ranked as the 12th fastest growing agency in the world by Adweek. That said, let's get into the good stuff here. Alexa, influencer marketing, it's something that I feel is a really exciting thing for e-commerce merchants especially, but for all industries. But one of the things that I've been seeing people talk about even on Twitter is that, everybody likes to say something's dead. Advertising is dead. Long live influencer marketing. And now people are saying like influencer marketing is, the future of advertising and things like that. Like, something drew you to this field in the first place. What is it? Why are you passionate about influencer marketing?
Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, having my background in brand side and influencer side, I feel like what makes me the most passionate is making it a win-win situation for both the influencer and the brand. Because I've seen from my POV, brands get taken advantage of because an influencer is way overcharging, right? And then you also have the influencers who are being taken advantage of because the brand isn't paying what they deserve. They're not looking at it from the right perspective. So my true passion is really making it so that it's a win-win situation for both the brands and the influencers, and really like marrying them together when it's like the right product and the right brand with the right talent. And I've been doing this for so long. And so I feel like I have this unique perspective on what's going to work and what's not. And a lot of brands expect like, oh, this influencer worked for this brand, they're going to work for mine. That's not always the case. So I think kind of like the magic of it is picking the right partners and then making it a fair and just partnership.
Yeah. And I think that there's something to be said about just when you find those wins and that effectiveness and you realize how good this can be for somebody's business and therefore their livelihood and their ability to feed their family and their ability to hire employees and things like that. That's probably where it gets exciting to just be a part of making those success stories happen.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and from the influencers, a lot of them, before this, they weren't in this world at all, right? They just happened to have a video go viral, or they just happened to be like a photographer, a videographer, have this passion in life that really lended itself into influencer marketing. And so it's really special to watch their lives change in this way. But they're also just so hardworking, which is also just really special to watch because they care so much. Like they want the brands to succeed. They want themselves to succeed. And so, the whole industry has changed so dramatically even in the last 6 months. And so it's also just really fun being like on the forefront of that and watching as things ebb and flow and, kind of just tackling each new thing as it comes up.
Yeah. Now, this didn't come up in your in my introduction for you, but I feel like we got to give a shout out because I remember talking to you about this just last week. I think you met the CEO of TikTok. What's he like?
Yes, Mr. Show Chu. Honestly, he was absolutely incredible. I was so lucky to meet him. It was at a creator event. One of my creators was one of only 8 that was invited to go and meet him. And what was really cool is he literally sat there and he took 2-3 hours just going to each individual creator, hearing, why they love TikTok, how TikTok, to what we were just talking about, changed their life, what features of TikTok they are, most excited about, what features do they like see improvements, and to just watch him genuinely care and listen to each individual creator talk about their story. It was really, I've been doing this for a long time. It was really surprising because usually you get to like a certain level at every, company, and to watch like the actual CEO sit down with all of them and just have such compassion for what they're doing and genuine gratitude, right? He's happy that they're on his platform. They're happy that they're having a good experience. I think a lot of other platforms could take note of his strategy, and how close he is to the action.
Well, I think that's important for, people who are, let's just say, leading a company to be aware of how their top users, their top creators are engaging with it, their needs. And I think that shows just incredible leadership for him to be able to put that together.
100%. And it wasn't just, the influencers with the most followers, right? It was small businesses. It was Indigenous dancer named James, who's amazing. It was just people who are making an impact on the platform. So it was really special.
No, that's really cool. When we get into just the idea of influencer marketing, I feel like there's a lot of things that people wrongly believe it is. And I think one of the reasons why people don't find success with it, and they say, oh, I tried it and I didn't find success. You and I have talked about this before, is they got too much in the weeds. And so they say, oh, I didn't find success because, I told this person what to do or whatever. And it's like, that's like, if I hire a painter to my house and I tell them exactly how they're supposed to do their job, it's not going to turn out the way I want it. But, go into more details. What are some of the things that you've seen brands do that sabotage their success with influencers?
I'll kind of start from the beginning, which is the partner, right? Who you choose, because there's different partners for different things. And to your original point of this is the future of advertising, there's some brands that want an influencer who's going to drive sales, right? That is their whole goal. But then there's other brands who want very like intense reach. They want it to be like a billboard. They want brand awareness. The creators for each of those things are oftentimes very different creators. So it's first isolating, like, what is the ultimate goal? Are we trying to drive sales? Are we trying to drive brand awareness? Are we trying to just get the word out about something that's happening? Is it like a very isolated campaign about a product launch or a pop-up store, right? There's going to be a very different scenario and group of creators that you work with. The next thing is, let's say you are that brand that wants to drive sales. They're like, okay, I have, $2,500. I'm going to try influencer marketing. That's not going to work. So in order to have like a truly successful campaign, you need to have like a strategy behind it. You need to be working with like multiple creators. Even if you're doing like an affiliate model and you're not paying them a huge upfront fee and you're paying them like a smaller upfront fee, plus the affiliate, you still want to have like a good amount of influencers. To rely on one influencer to take away your strategy or like to build the whole entire campaign is not going to work. So that's another thing that they do wrong. And then once they just finally do partner with them, I feel like they don't trust them, right? Like you said, they come with a brief. Sometimes these briefs are like 26, 27, 28 pages. I've seen a brief where like it breaks down, literally per like frame of the reel or the TikTok. Like, I want you to be talking about this. And within the first 3 seconds, the product has to be shown in this way. Obviously, the creator knows their audience. They've built this audience. They know them well. Like, they're in the trenches with them. So you have to trust them and like let them be part of the process. The next thing is, I've seen a lot of brands, especially like the larger brands, they're spending a ton of money with some of these creators when they're coming at it from a brand awareness perspective. And yet they don't hop on a call or make it personal at all. Just as like good practice on the talent management side, the brands who hop on a call with the creator becomes much more invested, right? I remember, I'll give 2 quick examples, but I was on a call with the Hydrolite team and they were going through their brief and I was 100% sold on the science. And I'm sitting back like, I never would have taken from that brief the way that they're explaining it. Same with AG1 or Athletic Greens. I was on a call and I said to her, hey, before the influencer joined, does this work? Like, tell me, like, it's expensive, And she was so honest. And she said, I hope I don't get her in trouble, but she said, honestly, if you're the epitome of health, like this isn't going to change your life. You're already getting all of those really important like microgreens and nutrients into your system. She goes, however, if you're a human piece of garbage, that was me, this product will change your life. So like I bought it immediately. I still buy it. It comes to my house every month. So like there's certain things that you get from those like intimate moments with the people at the brand that you just can't duplicate in any other way. So I just highly recommend that because you're going to get a lot of organic content from the creator. They're going to care a lot more and they're going to be invested in your goal. Like tell them what your goal is. Like, are you trying to drive sales? Are you trying to get a bunch of views? Like what is your message and what is your goal?
And I think that's the key. I'd actually never really thought about it in that way before, but in advertising, we talk a lot about running campaigns for, top of funnel versus bottom of funnel. We're talking about reach campaigns, video views campaigns. We're talking about purchase optimized campaigns. And so oftentimes when I think about influencers, I think of very like direct to consumer, like we're actually going to make them try to buy like direct response. Like that's the goal. We actually want them to take action. But to your point, that doesn't always need to be the way that you're going to run influencers or even evaluate them. There are some influencers that are apparently way better at just getting exposure, even if that might not create the immediate response that you want from a purchase standpoint. They just have a real good way of getting in front of a lot of your ideal audience. And then that follow-up one, whoever that is, that's going to drive that home.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, just within the industry, like it's called like a heartbeat or a pulse or a wave. But really, in an ideal campaign, if you're going to set it up correctly, you want to have, 1 to, depends on how large of a brand it is, to 5 influencers that are elite or that are, macro creators. And then you have some mid-tier, some rising, and then you have a ton of micro and nano influencers. And they're doing a lot of that like sales driving. But they've already seen it, right? They've already seen it from the elite influencer or the macro influencer. And if they haven't already seen it, we always say it's 5 to 7 touch points of seeing a product, which they could see all 5 or 7 from your ads, right? That you're running on your end. So like that could be that you could do it that way too. But when you actually have that huge brand awareness and then you have the smaller influencers who are like, here's my discount code, purchase it today. They have the tap to shop right there in their Instagram story or in their link in bio on TikTok. That's really where all of the big conversion happens, is because you do have, you are attacking it from top to bottom.
Well, and I think that makes sense when you explain it that way, because it's a pyramid of sorts where you've got, this big influencer that's going to umbrella cover a lot of things, and then these smaller the ones that come in and say it in their own unique voice and way. And I think that's one of the things that I love about you. You brought up like the different tiers, and I think the tiers that you told me before, elite, macro, rising, mid-tier, micro, nano, like there's a lot of tiers, and maybe we can unpack that a little bit. But the idea here is we've used, we've seen how there was some influencers at one brand that we were working with where they had I think it was like a blackhead remover, and I wasn't directly the one on this account, so I might miscommunicate exactly what happened, but we saw an influencer, and I think it was a micro or a nano influencer in this case, called it a face spatula. Well, that was not on our radar that wasn't on the radar for the company that was selling the product. And so all of a sudden we're like, wait, is that a thing? And we find out that is a thing. That's like what a lot of other people are calling it. And so now we add that as a keyword into their Google Ads campaigns. And now this becomes something that they're, we're much more effective in dominating on a completely different thing that we even knew. And that was because, going back to the earlier point, we got out of the way, let them speak in their language.
Yep. And even it's interesting, especially on TikTok. That was always like the way to do it, right? The big influencers, and then you have a ton of smaller ones. However, now you'll have a brand because it's really cost effective to run ads on TikTok and other areas, more so than like paying a huge creator, right? So we've also seen brands where they'll run ads for an extended period of time. Now you're not getting the credibility or the trust, right? You're just seeing an ad. You don't know anything about this brand. You've never seen them before. But because you're seeing it so many times, then you see an influencer talk about the product. And now you're using that influencer to validate, does this actually work? Will it actually arrive? Because, when TikTok first took off, you'd order products, you'd never see them, or they would come and they would be damaged. So there was like this lack of trust. And now everyone's on TikTok. There's so much more trust on the platform in terms of advertising. But if you're seeing a bunch of ads, you still need that final influencer who's like, this actually does work. And I've seen it work great. And for some brands, I've seen it work to their detriment, where the ads look so cool. And then you have those influencers who are organically coming on and saying, I got it. I bought it so you don't have to. It doesn't work. Right. So you have to be really careful and clever about like how you position your brand and make sure that like those first people who are purchasing your product are getting like an accurate product, that they're getting it sent to them on time. You want to just really make sure that your brand is putting the best foot forward if they're going to start off with ads without doing influencers first.
Well, yeah. And I'd say if you're going from ground zero, right, like zero sales, no product market fit that's been proven yet, I really prefer brands, even as an advertising agency, I prefer brands who have started with influencer because that just gives you some of that feedback. It also gives us content that we can use in the ads. And so I think that that's the way. And I'd say another thing that I really like about influencers in this space is just to what you kind of pointed out. If we're running ads, there's an inevitability for a lot of people that they're going to want to go and look and see, well, what have other people actually said about this product? And so we look at it as this is, third party social proof as well. And you want those influencers not just to use them for their content, but to also use them as this ability to be a sounding board when they go and they see, oh, there's like 50 people here who are all saying really great things about this. I can maybe feel like I could trust this a little bit more.
100%. Exactly. And you see it all the time too, like right after like a bunch of influencers have gone live and the ads have gone live, you're going to see this like natural search for the product. People want to, and they're looking for people who have like 30 likes. They're looking for someone who has like no views. It's a super honest testimonial.
Sure.
So, which goes back to community building. So is equally, and it sounds probably stressful and overwhelming to a lot of people who are just getting started, but you have to have everything, right? You need a solid digital agency. You need to have a strong influencer campaign. You need to have a great community building team who has people who are out there talking about the brand organically that are genuine fans, because those end up being some of the most trusted tools that you have to actually confirm that bias.
Well, and I like that you said that people are going to look at the ones with 30 views. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. And that's one of the benefits to still using, macro versus and micro and nano influencers. And I'll say that we saw this firsthand on the macro side. There was a golf brand that came to us, years ago, let's say 2018 or something. And I can remember him saying that he had gone through like 9 or 10 other agencies, big names, all people that are really great. And nobody could figure out why his ads weren't working anymore. And they had made all kinds of wonderful changes to their ads. And he said, basically, he's almost like given up to this point. He was spending good money, let's say $500,000 a month, something like that, right? Like a decent sized brand, but it just stopped. And it had been like almost a year. And I can remember that what we did was we started looking around at some of the other things people were saying about them outside of the platform, right? Because it's so easy to get kind of laser focused and myopic in what you're doing. Right. And when we look at what's outside the platform, there were a couple of really big YouTube videos that were not speaking very favorably about his product. And those went live on the day that his ads all of a sudden stopped working. And so we were able to work with them to try to figure out, all right, how can you, regain some of this by working with them, working with others. And it made a big difference. And it was nothing to do with the ads. But to your point, people are going and they're going to look at, what these influencers are saying about you.
Yep. Without question. And because they trust the influencers so much, I feel like that leads into like the biggest thing that's happened in the last few years, which is just the power of allow listing, which was formerly whitelisting. However, we are not saying whitelisting anymore. There's a microaggression we don't need to touch. So allow listing is really like how you, in my opinion, how you hedge your bet, right? If you're going to work with an influencer who has a solid following, who has name and likeness, who has this great face and creates this great content, you really want to be able to promote it, to boost it. And that's where we see the majority of sales coming from. So if you're going to work with a bigger influencer, they can still be more than brand awareness. They can still go all the way down the funnel if you're going to push their content out where like you have the call to action that's right there. Right.
And I think that's the key. And we really appreciate whitelisting and allow listing as well from an influencer standpoint. And, but that doesn't always happen, right? So like, what are the steps that you need to take when you're working with influencers to make sure that you're able to use their content in that way?
So one of the best strategies that I've seen anyone implement, we do this for every single contract on our end, is where in the beginning, when you're negotiating with the influencer, have it as an option, right? There's a good chance that content maybe isn't great or doesn't perform to the like standards that you were expecting it to. And so you don't want to buy it up front. You don't want to like have that in the contract as something that you're already paying for. And then you're sitting there and you almost feel forced to use it because you're like, oh, we paid for this usage. So I would say to have in the contract, if we choose to exercise usage on this content, it will be X number of dollars that we're willing to pay you per 30 days that we're using that content. And actually the same goes for like the whole contract. I've seen a lot of brands enter into these like multi-year brand deals, but what happens if the first post goes live and their audience just is not receptive at all to this concept, to the brand, there's hesitation, then you're locked into this very long contract. So I also will see, we have the option to do 4 posts throughout the year. We have the option to add on the allow listing, or even just giving it to someone like yourself and just running ads with it as well. The only difference between allow listing and just making an ad with it on our end is that their handle gives you so much more credibility than anyone can imagine. So we're seeing at very minimum like a 3 times difference between like our sales numbers when it's like allow listed versus just going out from the brand's page. What I love about the brand page versus allow listing though is the like a lot more A/B testing tools. Like you're able to take a bunch of content and put it in there. So
Sure.
What I've seen happen often is that we'll first start there. We'll take all of the content we just got. Maybe we worked with 50 influencers. We'll put it out from the brand's page with like a minimal spend. You're still going to get sales, but it's not going to be the level of the allow listing. And then you're able to say, okay, this was the content that performed best. Now we're going to allow list that content. So you go back to the creator and you get that usage, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I think a lot of people miss about allow listing is getting that in the contract, which is what you just called out, that it's like, you can't just run this, without permission. You need to, get their permission, and you have to get page permission as well, but you have to get permission, add this into the contract from the get-go, because you don't know if this is going to work yet or not, but from the start. But if you have it in there, then that's at least an option.
100%. Yeah.
Something else that I was thinking about
is,
is,
by the way, run ads ever. Anyone who's listening, please don't run them with influencers.
Yeah, right.
You don't have their usage rights.
That doesn't make for very good relationships for the future, right?
Yeah. We've sent a lot of invoices out, and please pay those invoices so that legal doesn't have to get involved. But yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So let's say that somebody wanted to dip their toes into influencer marketing. And I know that that's, for someone like you, that's like, oh man, like there's not much you can do. But let's say that they've got a budget of $2,500. They're not at a point where they can hire you, but they want to at least just start, and they want to test it as thoughtfully as they can. What would they do? What tool would they use? How would they go about it? What would you recommend?
Honestly, like our bare minimum test, right? Don't consider this a campaign, but like test that we will do just to prove concept is we'll work with 3 creators. We usually like to have 1 instead of going elite, right? We'll go like to someone who's like more mid-tier, who we have a relationship with.
Sure.
We'll tell them like what's happening. Hey, we're doing this test. If it goes well, we're going to continue to work with you, but like work with us. And then a couple smaller creators, and then we'll have all of them go live organically. And then we will allow list on that content, and we'll at minimum be spending $5,000 on that test. And you're able to usually prove out, because from $5,000, we're seeing usually, and I would say more like on the minimum side, that
Sure.
$5,000 turn into 5,000 link clicks. Of those 5,000 link clicks, you should have like around a 10% conversion. So I always tell people too, if you can't justify that cost of $8,000, including the creator's fees and their whitelisting fees, if you can't justify, if 500 sales does not equal greater than $8,000 on your end, taking into account, obviously, all of your margins, then maybe this isn't even that great of a strategy, because it takes a while to scale that to a place where you're seeing a better conversion than that. So that's kind of like our true test. And for clients that see like huge success with just that, then it's really quickly and really easily able to scale from that point on.
You talked a little bit about how you're paying the influencers here, and I know that there's a couple of different ways. There's we've talked about affiliate versus upfront versus pay for performance versus earned, and it's just a gift. Or like, what's the best way, or what are some of the pros and cons, or what do you recommend there?
So, I would say the most common, especially for like a larger creator, is going to be like a flat fee up front. However, they are open to doing an affiliate model where you have both an upfront fee plus affiliate. And I always like to say, I've seen brands be like, hey, we'll give you $500 plus affiliate. Like if their rate is usually, $20,000 plus, like that's not going to work. But if you came to the table and said, hey, we have $10,000, we're going to give you $10,000 up front, plus we're going to give you, 30% commission on every sale that you drive. That's interesting. That's enticing. Let's do that, because what's going to happen is that influencer, if you would have just paid full rate, they're going to do that one post. They might talk about you again in the future if they really loved you. But if it's an affiliate and they do that first post and they make a bunch of sales, they're going to continue to talk about you organically. So I think that that's really like the best strategy for the future is a mix. It's just really hard. Brands have it in their head of like, oh, I'm doing affiliate, I'm not paying at all. Well, you're missing out on like all the best creators, because no creator that's really good at their job and works with brands every month is going to accept that. So what you're doing, and by the way, if they are, like, congratulations and keep working with them. But you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you're like alienating part of your best performing influencers. So I would say that mix of affiliate plus a base rate is what we see to be the most successful.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. That's true for a lot of things. Is there's a mix that's going to end up being the best thing. And so some influencers prefer one method, some prefer a different method, and the way to get the best of all of those is to be able to work with them, and whatever is the method that they prefer. Also,
how long until I'm able to mention your clothing changes?
I'm actually just impressed that it's taken this long.
No, I've noticed it the whole time. And I'm like, am I supposed to say something? Like, at what point do I mention it?
Whatever you want. This is just fine. For those who are only listening, you have to check out the YouTube video. I have put on a sport coat, a bow tie, and a hat, all while we're sitting here talking. So
it's very impressive, honestly. You haven't missed a beat.
Yeah, I struggled a little bit.
Bow tie is my favorite, by the way.
I'm impressed that you haven't missed a beat, though. Like, you kept going the whole time. I was like, she's good. She knows how to keep a conversation despite whatever else I'm doing on this other side of the camera.
From my past life as a news anchor, nothing can distract.
Okay, so that's a good segue, because I wanted to talk about that. Like, one of the things that I like asking people about is why are you the way that you are? Like, what has enabled you to be successful doing what you're doing? And you talked about, like, were a news anchor. Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah. It was, as a little girl in journalism school, they said, it's our job to tell the truth and to go out and to tell both sides of the story and let the audience make their own decisions. And I loved that. And I loved doing that job. However, unfortunately, that is not the way that the real world works in terms of news. You do not get to tell both sides of the story and let the audience make their decisions. Sometimes scripts are handed down to you from network, and literally, you've seen Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. Like, I think it's Jimmy Kimmel. He even has a segment where he just shows all of the local news segments doing like the exact same script, and it's because you had to. And so I got really jaded from my time in news, and I knew there was like a happier way to still work in storytelling, still help people. And so, working with influencers and changing their lives, and we're still being able to tell stories with them and through them. It was a really nice transition. And I will say I grew up a lot working in news.
Sure.
So no more.
Do you have any horror stories that you're allowed to talk about?
I mean, I could tell 1,000, but I won't, because I'm sure they're too inappropriate for even this segment. But I will say that it's crazy the gall that these people have when they're like the president of this tiny county, and you're just like, how do you have so much confidence? But yeah, it was. There's movies about it. Bombshell. I thought that one was actually like not even bad enough. It was like 10 times worse. So that was one thing, but that was something that I dealt with, like a lot of women, which is not okay, but I dealt with it for my whole life. So that part was not as bad as having the veil uncovered that like news is not 100% true. And that part made me sad.
Well, and
Which is
I just
again
want,
why I love TikTok, because people are telling the truth on TikTok.
yeah.
And I hope it never goes away, because you're actually getting the truth from TikTok and you're not getting that from anywhere else.
I want to apologize because, when I was talking about like, wild and crazy stories or bad stories or whatever from the news, like my mind was going towards, it's like these horrible, blunders or mishaps or whatever, and something entertaining. Right. And but to your right, that it's like, your idea of what these bad situations are is completely different than mine. And so I apologize for even just misassuming that. And thank you for,
no.
to your
Everyone
point though, Twitter, TikTok, getting news from, TikTok and things like that. Like, I do appreciate what you're saying about the idea of one of my first places that I go to check out what's going on is to Twitter, even when it's like if I see, if I hear like something going on, it's like, oh, there's like this big boom or this siren going off. I'm looking to find like what's going on, like what, like here, does anybody else talking about this on Twitter or wherever that might be, to see if anybody's even mentioning it, because I feel like it's oftentimes, to your point, almost more accurate news than watching sometimes big broadcasts.
Yeah. I mean, there was a bunch of TikToks talking about it where in Paris, when they had all of like there was like riots happening and they were like protesting. If you typed in Paris on TikTok, all these videos of just unrest came up. If you typed in Paris on any other social platform or even into like your search bar on Google, you're getting very different results that aren't telling the full story that you're seeing on TikTok. And so I think that's really important. And that's my biggest fear when like there's these conversations about TikTok, something happening. I just feel like that would take away a whole truth to life, which would be frightening.
And I think it's important. I think it's important that we have that ability. I'm a big fan of free speech and people's ability to be able to go on and post those things, and not saying like this is what the narrative of the time is. And this is regardless of whatever side somebody might be on, where it's like, sure, you might support one side now, but when the other side's in power, who controls the media and the narrative at the time. And I think that's a dangerous slope. And it, there's downsides to free speech too. And I don't know how far we want to go down that rabbit hole either, but there's dangerous sides to that, where you've got a lot of, absolutely horrible things that people now are able to do or say or post on social media. And it's a delicate balance for sure. But I think that it's still better than, let's just say government controlled media.
100%. Yeah. And I feel like the algorithm does a good job. I mean, even during the hearing, the videos that they were pulling up as bad examples were like small videos that they never went anywhere. Like the way that the algorithm works, and like you can listen to him explain it himself, but is like if this person likes A, B, and C video, and this person likes A, B, F, and G, and then the other person likes A, B, Z, A and B are clearly liked by all different types of people who have all different viewpoints. So like those are the videos that are going to go viral. Yeah. This video might go viral in this community because everyone in this community cares about that, right? And that's how that algorithm is so accurate. Sure. But you need a lot of weigh-in and yet nodding yes in order for that video to take off. And so I do feel like you're getting really accurate information, because if everyone is saying like, yes, this is something that we should feel strongly about, then you're going to see that content.
Yeah, it rises to the top. Something else, pivoting away from this a little bit for fun. I like to get into like, who is Alexa Vogue as well. And you mentioned to me that, are you allowed to talk about that? Alexa Vogue,
Oh, yes, my last name.
Yes.
It actually is like my thing I'm going to carry for the rest of my life from my like traumatic news. But yes, my last name is my maiden last name is Vogue Tritter, very German, pronounced Volktritter. And my very first news director, before I even was on TV, even a single day, he pulled me into his office, and I still remember him. Good memories of him. And he was like, listen, I don't know how the F to say this last name. Like, do you want to be Alexa Brienne, which is my middle name, or do you want to be Alexa Vogue? And I was like, well, Brienne's not even a name, so I guess I'll be Alexa Vogue. And then when I got married, my husband's last name is Sweet Licky, which is just amazing to me. But funny and somewhat inappropriate. So my current boss was like, listen, we're going to stick with Vogue. Let's just go with Vogue. So I will probably be Alexa Vogue forever. And that is my special work name. And it does allow me to keep some of my family life private as well.
Well, and I love it. It's a great name, and there's even the idea that it elicits, when you hear Vogue, it elicits like this like status and this reputation and things like that. And
Right.
if I remember correctly, a lot of other really great people have changed their names a little bit to have that. Dale Carnegie, if I remember correctly, I don't remember but the guy who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, Carnegie wasn't his last name originally, and I think I remember he did that to more properly align with like Andrew Carnegie, and then Jamie Foxx, I just saw yesterday. I didn't even realize this. His real name's Eric Marlon Bishop. That's not even close, right?
My favorite
and I think
is great. Aubrey. Right.
Yeah, well, and I think do you know why he chose Jamie Foxx, or at least what I saw him say why he chose Jamie Foxx for his screen name? It was something along the lines where he said he saw like all of the girls were getting like called up, and he was like, I'm just going to pick like this really neutral name, Jamie. It could be a guy, it could be a girl, they don't know. Yeah. And then he's like, he gets called Jamie Foxx, and he shows up. They're like, oh no, we're looking for Jamie. He was like, yeah, bro, that's me. Like, I'm Jamie. Right. And so it's like, oh man, just really thinking through. He's like, how do I game the system here a little bit? And there's some brilliance though to name changes.
It's funny on the other end too, because Taylor Swift, her parents named her Taylor so that if she handed out her business card, you wouldn't know is it a guy or is it a girl, because they will have very like business backgrounds and they're setting her up for success in the business world. But yes, I've even considered changing my name to Alex for that reason. Like, you don't know, is Alex a girl or a guy? But Alexa Vogue, there it is for the rest. And Vogue Tritter, I will say the only person that upset was probably like my grandfather who was seeing me on TV for the first time. And like, there goes his last name, just like chucked out the window. And it was Vogue to Vogue, Vogue Tritter to Vogue, but it's fun.
Grandpa still likes you.
Yeah. He still wants his credit.
Yeah. What about any quirks? Like if we were working in an office together, I would find this out about you, right? Where it's like, you're like, oh, I can't touch food or something like that. Any quirks?
The biggest one is probably that. And to be fair, Zoom has like transformed my life in the business setting, because I listen 100% on Zoom. I can see the person across from me. I can hear them. But, we've been remote since inception. So 10 years ago, we were still using Zoom. My boss always says, like, should have invested in it back then. But we were using it without video. And I can get easily distracted. I get lost in my emails. I get lost in Slack. But when I'm on Zoom video, I'm fully paying attention to whoever I'm talking to. And so it's really been transformative for me. If anyone's not using video, that's why I love it. I see people, on TikTok complaining, I don't want to put my makeup on or do that. I feel like at this point, no one cares if you're wearing makeup or what you're wearing. It's just,
I never wear makeup.
Camera. Yeah. And then I will say I have the very best team, because they are all mind readers, and I think they have to be at this point. And so before I could even go to them and say, hey, I need this, they're like, hey, I figured you needed this based on the email that I read. And it's incredible and transforming for me, because there's days where it's like 5 p.m. and I'm finally getting to look at some of my Slacks that I've missed earlier in the day. So not proud of that one, but I am really happy with my team.
Well, and that's a reality, and you have to be able to rely on your team to be able to handle those things. And I think that is maybe even just a sign of good leadership, in saying that it's like, I trust you. I've found that when I was a new manager, I can remember thinking that I needed to answer every question. And when I was in the office at the time, maybe 2014 or so, it felt like there was lots of questions. And then I would every once in a while take a day where I would just work from a coffee shop. And it was amazing how few questions there were, because people were able to answer their own questions. And I at first I thought, in my ignorance, I thought it was just because, I'm not there, so they can't answer the question. They figure out how to answer their own question. In my aging here, I've learned that I was like, I think really it's because I enabled them to be able to answer that question. They already had the ability to answer them. I was the one who was oftentimes getting in the way, demanding this or needing to see this or whatever that might be. And they were like, hey, they actually didn't want to ask the question. They wanted to answer it themselves too. And me getting out of the way allowed them to.
I 100% agree with you. It's funny. Sometimes I'll watch like in Slack a question come in, and I simply just didn't have time to answer it. And then I watch their answer come in like does this seem right? All right, it seems right. I'm going to send it. And so I watched it's amazing to watch like the whole transition of like them realizing, okay, okay, fine. You're still so busy. Like, I'm just going to send it. And they're always right. Always. So
yeah, that's great. That's really encouraging. We implemented EOS recently, Entrepreneur Operating System from Traction. And I think the one thing that I really appreciated the most about that is it's easy to think that maybe like mission, vision, values are good to have, but they're not necessary. It's a distraction from, let's just say, like the actual production work or whatever that might be. But once we had that laid out very clearly for the team, it was easier for everybody to row the boat in the same direction. They knew how to answer the questions in the way that was aligned with what we were doing. And so I'm a huge fan of exactly what you're saying, where it's like people can answer questions much more intelligently if you as a leader are willing to just kind of outline the overall vision of what you're trying to accomplish.
100%, which actually goes into the most important thing to me, which is mental health of my team and my influencers, actually. And so a lot of times the question that they're answering, that I would say that they got that answer from just drilling down the importance of mental health for our creators is, hey, this brand is pushing back. They're asking for, a really tight turn on this. Should I like push the creator or should I push back on the brand? And the answer is that you push back on the brand, because we exclusively manage families. These are moms. They have sometimes 5, 6, 11 kids. They have an entire, life that's going on. Yeah. And to ask them to drop whatever they're doing and quickly go film in the next, 2 hours, this edit for this brand, that's not something that I would ever support. I would always say, ask the brand what is like a realistic timeline that they can get that turned in. And a lot of that experience comes from, we would have influencers who are like, no, it's fine, I'll do it. Well, and then the brand sits on it for a couple of days. It's not like they even go live that day. And so it's a lot of experience of knowing like, okay, what is the most important thing? But at the end of the day, I'm sure you would agree, like, this is social media. Like, we are not doctors. Like, we are not saving lives. We are not like frontline heroes. This is an Instagram post or a cereal. Like, nothing bad is going to happen if this doesn't go live. And I will kudos the brands where it is important to them, right? Because even some of our strategies that we implement, we have to have all the influencers go live in a 2-week window, because it's like a very a blitz is what we call it. But those are set up 60 days in advance. So like there should be no rush. Like the content should have been approved 15 to 30 days prior. So if you're pushing that onto the creator, it means that there was like things that failed in the process between the brand and the agency before they got to the creator. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it to push them on that. It's just
mental health is huge. It is. It's something that I think everybody in every situation, going back to like the mission, vision, values, are one of our core values. We talk about, and in fact, I have it right here, but we talk about be innovative, be accountable, and be human. And the big part about the be human there that we talk about is, we all have good days and bad days. We all have personal lives and things that are going on. Somebody's grandma may have just died and they're trying to figure things out, their dog or whatever is going on. And there's I think it's Richard something, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, artist who has a painting called Anger Transference. And it shows this idea of this boss yelling at this guy. And then it shows him in the next, little piece yelling at his wife. And then it shows the mom yelling at her son, and it shows the son yelling at the cat. And I think that we transfer that so much. And a lot of this is out of like incorrect communication or bad communication or whatever. And so we didn't communicate clearly. And so now there's a rush because we're at the deadline. And if we communicated in the first place the way that we needed to, that wouldn't be a problem. But now we've transferred this anger. And I think that doesn't usually, I would say almost never creates better performance. It's going to create worse performance, and it's going to create people who don't want to continue working with you. And so I think that you're spot on. I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah. And to be fair, like whether it's like a $100,000 deal, $500,000 deal, $10,000 deal, I've never seen like anger or angst or sassy responses win in this industry. I mean, as women, they teach us like from a young age, like oh, like don't use exclamation points or don't use smiley faces. And I've been doing this for a really long time. I'm the senior vice president at 2 companies, and I use exclamation points all the time. I
Good for you.
absolutely love it. I feel passionate. And I also want people to know that like I'm here as a teammate. Like I might not be able to make that rate work, but I'm going to tell you nicely, and I'm going to try and figure out other alternatives, and I'm going to send you other talent that will make it work. And so in this industry, there's a lot of people who are just very sassy and pointed, and I've just never seen it work. I've never seen that win at the end of the day. I've seen it lose a lot. I've seen people get, put on like do not contact lists. I've seen people get, shaded from different brands and agencies. I've never seen it work. And I even tell my influencers too, if a brand does us wrong, right? I've seen creators go on and they're talking about it and they're vocal. I don't do that. That's that brand's karma. That they'll deal with that their own way. Like we're going to be nice and we're going to smile and we're going to move on to the next campaign. And we're going to get much more from that versus having any sort of bad attitude.
Well, it's like you're reading my mind here, because I also use lots of exclamation marks and smiley faces and winky faces and GIFs. And I'm absolutely all for just in contractions and communicating normally. One of my buddies, Sujan Patel, he actually for a bit of time changed his email signature to say hugs and kisses, which I thought was hilarious. So every business email went out with hugs and kisses. But it's like, just have some fun and yeah, don't let that. I the same way I like being the person who's just like, let's just be positive and happy and let's not be grumpy and mean.
Yeah. But I've even seen some signatures that say, no pressure responding like right away. Like my deadline for this is actually on this date at the very bottom, where it's nice to, when you're in a flood of urgency, right? Like to have someone who's like, hey, this, just please respond when you can, because this isn't one of those. So
speaking of reading minds, I told you that I have like a silly game or something that I like to play every once in a while on the show here. And so you're going to be the first one of this one called Marketers Can Read Minds.
Oh,
and so you're going to read my mind here in just a minute. And I think you're going to be pretty good at this because you do this a lot. So first we have to establish our connection, our neural link here, right? So we're establishing our neural link. Do you feel like you've connected not to my brain?
I love the hat is just keeping me in there too. I'm right underneath it.
Okay, good. All right. So we're there. You're going to tell me to pick a number. Okay.
Okay.
And what number do you want me to pick between what and what?
1 and 10.
No. Let's make it bigger. Let's make this a challenge.
Oh, I already picked the number.
No. Bigger. 1 in 1,000, something like that.
How about 1,000,000?
Okay, 1 in 1,000,000. So I'm going to pick a number between 1 and 1,000,000, and you're going to guess what number I've picked here. And let me just grab this. I can write on it. Okay. What number did I guess?
1,000,000.
What, between 1 and 1,000,000, and I guessed 1,000,000?
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. That's exactly what I guessed. Apparently marketers can read minds, and you're right here.
I feel like as marketers, like we're always going for like the biggest thing, right? Like I want the most amount of sales for my clients. I want the most amount of deals. I'm
so true.
Thinking big.
I love it. Alexa, thinking big. If people want to think big, follow you, connect with you, work with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Oh, we can provide my email or connect with me on LinkedIn. I feel like Alexa Vogue. There you go. It's never going to change on LinkedIn. I did make my handle recently, Alexa manage me, like a command for like Alexa. I thought it was super clever. Although everyone's been saying like Alexa manage me, like they think it's management, and I left out the NT, but I'm leaving it. So
this is intentional. I like it. This is good. It's like hey, do it.
Alexa manage me.
Alexa manage me. Yeah, check her out on LinkedIn then, and really appreciate you coming out, talking to us, Alexa, helping us to understand a little bit more about influencer marketing best practices. And
congratulations on the clothing change, because that was beyond impressive.
Congratulations to you for managing to get through it.
No, justice for me. I saw it from the very first jacket that you put on, but it is my job to distract.
A true news anchor. The thing's burning around you and you kept it straight. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out, listening to us. Go check out Alexa, follow her, connect with her, and have a great day.
Cool. Thanks, William.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.